Welcome to edition 22 of Whiteboard Wednesday. My name's Tim Harrington. I'm the General Manager of List Management at the Melbourne Football Club. Today I'd like to explain to you some basic tenements around the salary cap. You might have read with interest that Melbourne are intending to pay 100% of the salary cap this year. There's been some misunderstanding about how that is implemented. It doesn't mean we're paying our players more than what they deserve. We're using it as a long-term strategy so that we can actually recruit and retain the players that we have on our list that we expect will improve pretty dramatically over the course of the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And we want to keep that group of young talent together. So we're doing things today that will hold us in good stead for the future, we believe. The AFL has some basic principles that, used in conjunction, set it apart from most of the sporting organisations around the world. Those two things are the draft and the salary cap. Today I want to address the salary cap. Basically, the players can be paid in 4 ways: by a standard player contract, which is the money that they receive just for playing football. There's also some bottom line agreements that the players sign in that contract that they commit to making appearances for the club and also appearances for the AFL. Outside of the salary cap as such, outside of those standard playing contracts, are additional service agreements, whereby a player does extra work for the club to promote the club in all sorts of different ways that are outside of their normal agreed CBA, which is a collective bargaining agreement, appearances. They can also be paid via an employment agreement, which is a normal business payment which involves a job description and defined work that a player does for a club. It may well be something like working on a community program where the player goes out to a school or to a community group and does X amount of hours per week with a job description with objectives that have to be fulfilled, that the player has to tick off like a normal employee would to be paid to get the money that they've actually earned. There's also independent arrangements, which is something outside of the club's control. Probably the most well-known one would be something like the Vizzy deal that we believe Chris Judd is involved with. It's something that Vizzy used Chris Judd as Chris Judd the person, not Chris Judd the footballer. So it's outside of the football club's control, but is something the players are able to earn extra money that has to get logged with the AFL via the player's manager. Today I'd like to speak mostly about the salary cap itself and just the mechanism by which we are trying to retain and recruit players over the coming years. The collective bargaining agreement, which is the agreement between players and the AFL, will change at the end of 2011. So this period here, there'll be a change in the status of the amount of money the players get paid and also the terms and conditions of the collective bargaining agreement. I'll ignore that to a certain extent at this point in time because the expectation is the salary cap will rise to a certain extent. We're not sure what at the moment, but it won't really change the principles that I want to explain today. Each club holds a certain amount of dollars that payable on their books each year in the contracts that players have signed. Now the CBA says that the minimum amount of money that can be paid to the players on your list each year is 92.5%. So if you're not paying above that, you actually have to bring money forward and pay it into that year so that you do get yourself to 92.5%. Conversely, you're not allowed to pay over 100%. The gap between 92.5 and 100 is what I want to speak about today. And I'll make these figures up, if a club is holding on its books in any particular year, and I'll just say over the course of these years to use an example, if a club is holding 95%, for example, of the salary cap on their contracts in any particular year, you can use that 5% gap to pay from one year to the next, to the year previous, to try and get yourself up to 100%, which reduces the amount that you've got on your books the next year. So for example, if the Melbourne Football Club was holding on its books contracts worth 95% of the TPP in 2011 and the same amount in 2010, we could actually prepay some of this money into the year 2010 to get ourselves closer to 100% of the salary cap. with a young list, you're generally not paying 100% in any one year. So to use the ability to create a gap in your cap over successive years, you can prepay money from one year back into the year previous and get yourself up towards 100%. That obviously means then instead of that being 95% in 2011, that will decrease so that there's a gap left in the cap between 100% and whatever it is that you've got down to. So in 2011, you've got to make sure that you are above 92.5% again. You might have to look at this year and draw money from 2012 into 2011 to get yourself up to whatever it is that you're paying in a particular year. That means that this gap becomes bigger each successive year so that you can plan from years out to say when our list matures and when the expectation of our players are getting better and the market will demand that they earn more money, we have the ability to retain our players, but we also then have the ability to recruit players. So that we might look at our list in any particular year and say, this is what we really lack, this role, this type of player, this age group, this amount of games, and we target particular players that we can then make a play for in the trade market to say, okay, this is what we need to really enhance our list. And we have the ability to pay the money because we've made this gap in the cap through paying previous years. As a strategy to keep our players, we are looking to pay as close to 100% of the salary cap as we can in 2010 by using this mechanism, by taking money that we actually owe to players in preceding years and bringing it back to 2010. So we're not paying them any more than what they deserve. What we are saying is we'll give you your money early to create this hole in the cap in successive years so that we can pay players what they're worth in those years, but also provide that we can retain and recruit players. The AFL have done a fantastic job in utilising two principles together in conjunction to make sure the competition is reasonably even on a consistent basis. It's interesting that since 2000, the year 2000, all 16 clubs have made it to at least a preliminary final, which is a great equalising sort of mechanism within the AFL. Not many sports around the world have that ability. Most of the biggest sports around the world are dominated by the wealthy clubs. The draft and the salary cap allow for this cycle to keep occurring. What we're trying to plan to do is make sure that we build a list in a financial sense that we're able to retain our players because we are bringing money forward and helping them in a financial sense to be able to plan their futures with greater surety, but also create an opportunity to introduce other players to the club or pay our players what they're worth as they progress and as they show their natural talent and natural improvement that we're expecting over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, however long it might take. I hope I've educated you to a certain extent on why we are using this strategy. I'd love to think that we will be able to use this to great effect over the next couple of years to build our list. We've got a very young, exciting list. We've got to make sure we retain and recruit in the best possible way, and this is a real starting point for us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it. Look forward to bumping into you at the footy. Thanks.